Recovery has many faces, and we've said that so many times. And you have the substance user who's blamed and shamed and taken into, he's put in, or they've put into situations where there's interventions and there's all sorts of recovery things to do, and then taken out of the situation and put wherever and to recover, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is done in isolation. And is this really the case? Because what happens when they come back? What happens to the family? No one and nothing ever happens in isolation. And we may think so, but is it really so? And what happens to the relationships of this person who comes back from recovery? No matter how they recover, it doesn't matter. What happens when they come back? Well, I'm speaking to a very cool Timothy Harrington, who has family wealth care. Now, we're talking wealth as in WELL, okay? Timothy, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carina. I'm excited for the conversation.
Thank you. So first, before we go anywhere, why family wealth care? What is it, and why this whole thing about family?
Yeah, that's, oh my God, what a journey it's been. I'm what I call at level 60, which means that I am 60 years old, but I call it levels because it feels like when I'm going up, I'm actually getting better and I'm achieving more. So I like the level rather than the years old. But why that's important is because through all of these levels, everything, the greatest impact of my life has been the genesis of my life, which was born into a family. And that family, which I like to refer to family as the first community. So my first community, and all of our first communities are incredibly influential and impactful and impressive and impressionable. And so that being the case, without any qualifiers on that, is sort of how we're formed, right? We're impressed, we're influenced, and that happens. Some people believe it happens and the research will point to it happens in the last trimester. You're already under the influence, if you will, of your family. So if that's true, to me, that just feels like an incredible opportunity. And that opportunity is to accept the premise that family is the first community and how impressive and influential it is, and use that to our advantage to innovate in the way that we are in relationship with each other, not only in the original community, the first community of family, but in all of the overlapping systems that we interact with. And to me, if this is the genesis, and like you like to say, nothing happens in isolation. We don't exist in vacuums. We exist in relationship. We're hurt in relationships, and we heal in relationships. So if this is true and we accept this premise, then I really feel like the spotlight needs to shift from the individual who is expressing behavior and symptoms that we're all get excited about and mad about, and change that spotlight or widen the spotlight to include the system, to include mom, the family of origin, family of choice. I also like to include, if necessary or appropriate, colleagues in business, in the business world, because they are also influential and impressive as far as healing goes for a person who's struggling. And so I thought of a name one day. I kept hearing healthcare this and healthcare that, and a lot of it is based in negative reinforcement, like don't do this and don't do that and don't eat this. And it's a very sort of defensive posture. And I wanted to think about what kind of frameworks as a society are you and I already familiar with, probably more familiar with as far as a strategy than we are a health strategy. And that led me to thinking about financial strategy, and wealth care, WEALTH. And most people have a financial strategy, and they think about it a lot, and it's something that lives in the forefront. I like to say that people are obsessed or focused mainly on finance and romance.
That's true. That's true.
So they tend to occupy a lot of space. So I thought, how can I use the framework of finance, romance being also important because romance is relational, obviously, but finance being what kind of strategy that is particular to my family's situation can I develop using wealth, WEALTH, which is health and well-being, and use a lot of the same glossary, use a lot of the same sort of posturing and thought process and focus. And that's where family wealth care was born, because people understand that it's important to have a financial strategy, financial capital. And I said, well, everything that we're impacted by equally is also emotional capital. So let's also say that, yes, focus on finance, but also let's focus on emotional capital. And let's think about it in a way that makes sense and is easier to digest. Because I find in my experience that if we're speaking therapy, if we're speaking sort of in a different framework that is necessarily uncomfortable for people, that if we can change that language and adapt this framework, people might be more willing to say, oh, I get that, or I understand that, because it isn't so impactful or scary in a way that we can kind of typically talk about these challenges, the pathology of it, the sickness, the disease, the things that are overwhelming, and truthfully, and that people like to deny.
Yes,
I'm not
yes.
sick. I'm fine. I taught my girls very early the acronym FINE. I said, they say I'm fine. And I'm like, well, what is FINE? You know what FINE stands for, right? And they're like, what, Dad? And I'm like, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. And they're like, Dad? And I'm like, fine's not a feeling. So we need to figure out, let's get in touch with that emotional capital so that we can take more responsibility or be more impactful and have a more healthy relationship with emotions,
Yes,
So
yes, I love
that's a
that.
foundation of what I do is let's be more healthy in our relationship with emotional capital and use that to our advantage. And what I like to say is that everything that I do under the family wealth care umbrella is about creating legacy. It's not about crisis management. We definitely have to address what's happening in the moment, probably repeatedly in the moment, but the real goal is legacy. And that's really powerful and impactful because we can start thinking about the long game instead of just the short game.
Yes, yes, I love that. And also, what I'm hearing as well is we spoke a bit before the show, and I have to bring this up because about how we conditioned. And we know that conditioning, when we start, as we're younger, a lot of it impacts whether you use, and I'm just going to just mention this because whether we become substance users or not, right? And we were talking about sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never harm you. And yet we don't realize how powerful words are. Just how do we speak to ourselves and to each other? Like, oh, you know what? I hate you, or you're horrible, or you do this, or you do this, or you're ugly.
Yeah.
And how many times do we turn that back to ourselves? And what a big
Yes.
impact that makes on our lives, and how it influences relationships as well.
Yeah, that's right. And I say all the time, I'm like, I give an example very early in the conversation with a mother. I usually and predominantly coach mothers. This is what has been my experience over the last 17, 18 years. But I'll usually say something like, it's very important for them to know that I know that they love their child. But what we're going to talk about is how you love and care for somebody, not just that you have the feeling which is also important, but what is behind that feeling? And the idea of of being a person with great influence, being in a system of great influence, is something that when you're in crisis, you don't think about. You just want the behavior and symptoms to stop.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, you know, this whole idea of words is so important, because I'll be having discussions with people that, and I have in the past, not so much anymore, that get fairly heated, where people are trying to protect their point of view. And especially when I'm mentioning stigma has been a big part of my life, and I'll speak about how that actualized for me and my family. But words matter. We both agree. And so as somebody is telling me on no uncertain terms that words don't matter, I always, or not as much as I think they matter, I always reflect back. I'm like, but look how many words you're using to make your point about why words don't matter. You know, and I'll count the words. I'm like, you used 170 words to tell me words don't matter. And, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. I think, you know, especially early in life, that we don't understand our own impact from the words that we say to people, and how we label people and other people and all that stuff. And so, to your point, you know, words are very important. There's no question. We all agree. You and I for sure agree. But now it's about how I use my words, right? So again, it's strategy, it's intentionality, it's this idea of appreciating the power that I have as a father, as a brother, as a husband,
Yes.
Whatever role I have. How it's me ultimately recognizing how much influence I have, and then carefully managing that influence. And that takes practice. And that is what I have been doing for myself through my own journey, coming from the influence and the impression that my family made on me, and that waterfall effect that happens over generations, and how we repeat, it sends the Father and all that. The idea of no longer in my family became very important to me. I wanted to end what I call the emotional inheritance repeat over generations, and say no more of this. I'm going to take the good, and I'm going to reimagine the rest. Because it's not all bad, right? It's never all bad. Usually, you know, there's good things that we inherit from our family, from our parents, and whoever is our greatest influence. And so that's very important to recognize too, is the context of it all. And so, yeah, words are so important, and I really believe that to my core. And so I practice that. I take my own advice, which is important. But, you know, I think going forward, it's really about appreciating in any relationship, including this one, what our influence is, and how important it is to manage that, and to be respectful. And this is all the things that I'm teaching my kids, and acting out, modeling is also very important. Speaking of words, modeling in this world I live in, wealthcare, is incredibly important. And one of the hardest lessons for people to learn, because they're so obsessed with the person who may have a substance, you know, problematic use, chaotic use of a substance, or some behavior that is challenging, is that they focus immediately on that, not their own actions and how they show up and use their influence and their power to help change. It's very difficult, because our culture teaches us the opposite, you know, and we abdicate, you know, as parents, we abdicate the role of healing a lot of times to the treatment world.
Yes.
Which is very scary.
Yes, it is. It is. But and also by doing that, you don't realize the bigger picture again, like you were saying.
Yeah.
They take the so-called substance user or problematic behavior, whatever it is, take him out
Yeah.
of the situation, put him into something, or get rehabbed or fixed or whatever. Take him back and put him in the same situation, and then wonder why he relapses, because there's nothing has changed. So
That's right. There's a great saying. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, can't carry on. That's
No, there's a great saying. You reminded me. It's hard to be a new person in an old place.
yes, exactly. But then what happens is, because nobody's taking responsibility, again, then when he relapses, it's the blame, it's the shame, it's the kicking out, or whatever they do, because it's easier to react and to try and defend yourself against the badness out there than to actually take responsibility and go back and say, but who am I in this situation? How am I influencing this? How am I affecting this behavior? Me too. So it's
Imagine.
yes, we have to reimagine it, because we live in a society where it's like, oh, poor me. It's always everyone else's fault, instead of stopping for a moment and saying, no, I'm in this situation.
Yeah.
Where am I in the situation, and how can I heal myself to be able to change the situation?
Yeah, exactly. I always say, it's like, you know what? Just because somebody is swinging from the chandelier doesn't mean you jump on with them to help.
Yes.
But that's what happens. Typically, it's like, let me help you. And, I leave the solid foundation of the ground, and I jump, and I get in the action, right? Because I think that's where you solve the challenge. And this brings up one of the foundational aspects of what I do and what I teach, and that is self-regulation. This idea of being able to stay in my own body and in my own space, because this is sacred space. And for me to think that, I use this too. This is not my original. I can't remember who I heard it from, but this person uses the example of, we all have a hula hoop around us. And this metaphorical hula hoop is the container and also the horizon. So the container is everything from the edge of the hula hoop to my body, to this sacred space. And then everything beyond the horizon is out there past the hula hoop. And inside the hula hoop is what I can control. And then now gaze upon the vastness of what I cannot control. And just take a minute to gaze and just take it in, of like, everything that you cannot control is outside of that, including your loved one or whoever is challenging you. And be humbled by this. Be humbled by this, and now be empowered by it at the same time, because the idea is to change my perception, is to change my relationship to everything past the hula hoop, my boundary, and then look inward. Inner space is the final frontier. Look inward, inside, and look at all of the power that you have. And now let's take the resources that you have and let's deploy them in a way that is powerful in the relationship, that has nothing to do with control. Because once you enter the realm of control, you have lost control. So there's a guy who wrote a book, which I think you would really enjoy. It's called Monkey Traps. And do you know about this?
No, but I can feel it.
Do you know what a monkey trap is? It's incredible. This is what they use to catch monkeys in the jungle. And it's a glass jar with a banana in it. And it's a very small opening, just large enough for a monkey arm to get in to grab the banana. Right? And then once the banana is taken by the monkey, he will not let go. You're shaking your head. This is what we do. We are constantly in emotional monkey traps. And it is, I think, control. And I think this guy who wrote this book, which can't think of his name, I'll try to remember it, but he says that control is the most prevalent addiction on planet Earth. Our addiction to control, or the illusion of control, is what causes, and it's very Buddhist, right? It's about attachment, right?
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
attachment is suffering. So it's all, you can see how there's many ways to look at this, but we can also just look inwardly and look in our game film and just rewind, and all the most challenging aspects of our life relationally was when we were trying to control someone else.
Right, yes, that is exactly.
Right?
When
It
we
is
just,
like, oh, it's tough. It's tough, but it's true.
and how we, yes, and we just create our own suffering as well. Take a step
Yeah,
back and
whatever
realize
you
how
grab
create
onto,
suffering.
yeah, whatever you grab onto and hold onto is going to drag you,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
So let go or be dragged. It's your choice. To your point, it's your choice. In this moment, my reactive moment is to grab onto what you said, what you did, what you're feeling, and try to shake it out of you or make you change it, or which is not relational at all.
No.
It's not connection. It's control or coercion or some other failing strategy to get what you want out of relationships. And really isn't this really the thing that really upsets me, is that we have all this game film of people trying to figure out, better communication, right? Like we spend a lot of money in the professional world, right? I always tell families, I'm like, you've probably been a part of a company that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants to come in to teach you how to communicate better.
That's so funny.
But where have you done that in your own family? And I guarantee you could tell me one right now, many different challenges you have with communication within your family with different people. So why are we not applying the same idea of how important communication is, healthy communication, in this system? And you're calling me about a system, whether you look at it or not, that is struggling, that is in chaos, right? Not the person. The person is the focus, but it is not the fault. It is not the problem. It is a product of the chaos within the system. What they're doing is they're signaling to you that something needs to change within the system. That's what's going on. It's a signal. It's not a problem to be solved. It's a person to be loved or to be related to differently, so they can feel safe and calm down and allow themselves to be seen, and also allow themselves to be open to suggestion for healing. If we're not doing that, then you're getting this.
Of course, because you have to.
Of course you are.
You're trying to protect yourself against this person, and they're trying to protect themselves from you, and it's just chaos.
That's
And
right.
again,
It's a power struggle. It's just,
yes.
yeah.
Instead of someone saying like, okay, stop, let's see how, and again, take it back to ourselves and say, who am I in this situation? Why is this happening? What am I learning from this? I mean, with all the things that have happened in my life, I always go back and say, every one of them was a blessing. I mean, there were horrible things that happened, like everybody, but everything was a blessing, because it allowed me to die and be reborn, and die and be reborn, and just become more and more expansive and excited about life. And isn't that what it's about?
100%. I'm having the same experience. I'm having the dying to be reborn to something new, to shed one's skin, right? In the power of the myth, the snake sheds its skin, but the metaphor is to be reborn, to reimagine and repurpose your own existence. Is to shed skin, is to innovate, is to be open to all of these things that you call blessings. And I couldn't agree more. I think that is the sign of a next level spirituality, is to understand and to be grateful to everything, to literally be grateful for everything, and not partial out, like I'm not grateful for that, but I'm really grateful for this. It's right. It's everything matters, and is so honest to why you and I, Carina, are here right now. That's why it all matters. It always matters. And that's super important because that's context. And context to me is king, because context gives me clarity about the whole and the big picture, and all of these different metrics and all of this different data and all these different experiences bring to bear how I can be more powerful in this sacred space, so that I can share my sacred space with you without becoming lost. I can love myself and you at the same time.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, and that's what I'm shooting for.
Yes, and it's so powerful because we talk about love. It's quite interesting how, romantic love, and you talk about love, but how much of that is really love? How can you love somebody if you leave me, I'll kill myself, or if I'll become obsessive with you, or if all these crazy things that we see, and I mean it's romanticized, and Hollywood it's all fun to watch, but is that really love or obsession? So I think as a society, we've just our whole idea of love and definitions are a bit messed up.
Yeah, popular culture. Thank you for all of that. It's like almost every song is a codependent anthem.
Yes, I know. Stop with that.
Yeah, you just listen to it and you're like, this is unhealthy. But this storytelling is important, because if we change the way we look at these anthems, then they become cautionary tales, not the way to do things, right? Yeah. Yeah. So it's super important. And I remember listening to someone, I am like voraciously curious. So I am always watching and reading and looking for influence and empowerment from people who are interested in discussing these kinds of concepts and using their own experience as a cautionary tale, but also what they've learned and how they've sort of found their sacred space, and are very respectful of, like you said, everything they've been through and how it's all super important. And I remember somebody saying one day, I caught it on a TV show, I think it was a chat show or something, and this person said, love is a verb. And I was like, love is a verb. I'm like, I'm a Hallmark addict at this point. I'm looking for the right words to say to buffer my actions, if you will. Right?
Yes. Yes.
Right. Because that's what Hallmark is for in some way. Like a card, flowers, and chocolates should fix everything, and
yes, right.
Right. That's popular culture. That's why that's an economy of apology. But what I never understood until somebody strongly pointed out that actions speak louder than words, Tim. And I said, yeah, but did you see what I wrote in the card? It's really amazing, beautiful. Like, what an apology. It's one of my best works, and it's crazy because it's like, I just want to move on. I don't want to amend necessarily, right?
Yes, yes.
I want to move on and get back to the romantic part. Yeah, I want everything to be, puppy dogs and rainbows without any work, without any amendment to what got me into the trouble I was in, where I needed to buy a card and get flowers and chocolates. And I think, Again, I think this all goes back to the first community, where the real opportunity for changing the trajectory of our lives and our kids' lives is to start very early and very simply on what a relationship is as a premise. Because we're all learning on the job, and it's all crisis management. If you're learning on the job, it's crisis management.
Yes.
If we have a preventative posture, if we can appreciate legacy as it relates to relationships that you and I are in, then we can maybe get excited about what we can do in the moment when there is no crisis. Just imagine for a second, if you changed your strategy from crisis management to proactive strategies for how we can become this family with this mission, this respect for each other's different value systems, and just difference in general, right? And as we all can see, if you're looking, that we are living in the most divisive culture of our times. And I don't think it's just nationally. I think it's internationally, where everything is about a win. It's a win and a loss. You have a win column and a loss column, and that's it.
Yes.
There's no nuance. There's no appreciation for complexity. There's no appreciation for difference. But more than that, there's no appreciation for like-mindedness. Like, if we spent more time discussing how we're the same than how we're different, we would very clearly find more ground for collaboration, for appreciation for who we are and how we can support each other. I think that's the lesson we're in. And I think, knowing you just a short period of time, I can tell that you appreciate the big picture and understand that within this conflict or this consternation or what it's really doing is saying, oh, here's the opportunity to go back to reframing all this instead of just let's fight it out until there's a winner.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I appreciate that, from the smallest example to these big macro examples of things that seem very overwhelming, and they are overwhelming. They're not even seemingly overwhelming. They are overwhelming. And so again, I want to go back to first community. If as a family, we can look at these things, and it's happening in my family right now because everyone's reading the news. And if I can say and propose that, yes, and also let's bring it in and let's decide how we can take care of each other. Right? Because we may even disagree on certain things, little aspects, little bullet points. But what's important is how we support each other through something that is difficult. It's challenging. Yes. It's emotionally challenging. I have young kids. One of my kids is like, thanks, Dad, for the world we're inheriting. She's very active. She's in it. And then I have another kid who's like, can I have some money to go out with my friends? So I have these two different people, but the impact is going to happen regardless. And so we talk about the impact. We talk about how to not grab on to the meme or to grab on to the sensationalism, to grab on to the soundbite, but to look at the bigger picture like you and I are talking about, to understand words matter, but also to understand that I need to check those words out as they're being presented to me and find out if they're accurate. Look for the preponderance of evidence, not just somebody's, point of view. And I think these are all the things that happen in families, especially when you're in crisis. People tend to dig in. People tend to detach, right? We have this whole idea of detach. When we talk about codependency, it's like, Mel Robbins has this book out called Let Them, right? It's a very, very popular book. And I take issue with it in a certain way. And so I don't bash the book. I just say, well, instead of let them, what if we change it to lead them? Because I think we have a leadership issue within families. People want to be friends. I had a mother who said, my daughter's my best friend. And I said, well, who's the parent then?
And how many times is that reversed? How many times
does
the child become the parent, and she's parenting her mother, and then she realizes later on why she can't have relationships, or why she sabotages herself, or can only get so far with making money, or whatever it is. It's it's quite interesting to see all those patterns as well.
I mean, if you don't know how to parent, then you default to friendship, and that's not what we don't need that in the family system. We need leadership in a way that is modeling. So leadership is modeling, right? In other words, I've been in situations where I've worked in systems where the leader did not take their own advice. Yeah. Very much happened in my family system I remember so distinctly, like, my parents saying we need to have a talk, and we go to the living room, which nobody ever said it unless you were being talked to, unless there was a meeting. Right. So I remember walking in there and being like shutting down as soon as they said meeting, I started to shut down. Right.
Yes.
Because what I knew I was going to be, what I knew I was going to hear was a monologue, not a dialogue or a duologue. They didn't give a shit. Excuse my French. They didn't care about what I had to say. They never said, how do you feel about it? Not once. And there was a lot of hypocriticalness going on, because whatever behavior they may think that, was inappropriate for me was, on many occasions was a behavior that they were displaying. So this idea of family being a loose knit hierarchy or structure of healthy habits of communication is really just a dictatorship in many, many instances. So it's what we learned. Again, this is what I was inheriting, right? I'm inheriting this perspective or perception of what it is to be in this type of relationship. And I didn't like it. I obviously didn't like it. It didn't feel good, right? I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel valued. All of those very important things, as you know, that we get to teach parents how to act, to, in their actions, prove that their kid, regardless of how they're performing, that they always have an inherent value, right? This performative value pact is terrible, right? You get $10 for every A, some sort of contract, of like, how do I get you to do what I want you to do? Coercion and threats and all this stuff that we have inherited again as parents. And then again, it just goes on. When they become parents, they default to the classroom of their own parenting experience. And so again, I think my message is getting to be more targeted, and that is, let's really appreciate the first community and direct our resources and influences as a community towards the family and support families who are struggling. Create a family support system. Stop relying on these systems that are not very good at deploying resources, if they even have any resources anymore. It's going to have to be this sort of boots on the ground, grassroots movement of where a family gets healthy and then through their legacy supports other families and what they've learned about healthy parenting and about this legacy idea of like, let's not just put out fires for the rest of our lives as parents. Let's really develop legacy strategies so that we can change the trajectory of our offspring and their families and their families', right? Just like they're doing anyway, right? That's already happened. It happened to you and me. How do we interrupt? How do we intervene in a way that's simple? We don't want to get complicated. We don't want to be in the pathology side and say, this is what's wrong. This is how you're sick. This is how you're, messed up, your problems. We want to be solution focused, which is in relational architecture, which is in how I speak to somebody wherever they are on the spectrum. That is really, I think, can be the most powerful way to turn around our culture, is to focus on the first community, is to focus on family. And it's not about family values. Let families have their own fucking values. Their own values. I don't want to get in somebody's value business. I want to get into somebody's business as it relates to strategy of being proactive rather than reactive. Yes. And what are the foundational aspects of communication that will help you navigate a road that is challenging for all families? you can't get rid of those challenges. They're the teachers, right? So it's how do I react to these challenges? This is what I'm talking about. So no matter how a child performs or what they're doing, what their behavior, if you can change that from something to control to something that is a signal for you to model something different in the communication, there you go. I mean, that's,
Yes.
we
Yes,
can make it
exactly.
simple. I don't want it to be complicated. I don't want complication when it comes to this. I need something. I need some simple strategy to get me from chaos to clarity, and as quickly as possible. That doesn't mean clarity doesn't mean I've solved everything and everything is great. It just means I'm clear about the pathway from chaos to clarity, from out of chaos into something different, whatever that is. Because people tend to languish in chaos because they don't know how to get out of it, and it becomes
Yes.
very familiar, right? And that becomes
Yes.
safe, right? Familiar, predictable, and reliable becomes safe for folks, even though it's not good.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
it's there with that. Once we heal the family in that way, then it just ripples out, and we can
that's right.
heal the
That's right.
community, the society, and realize that all these labels and you know, blaming and shaming and calling
Yes.
people names, or schizophrenic,
Yes.
or alcoholic,
Yeah.
or addict, they mean nothing. And all they do is keep people stuck in that role as well. And in
That's right.
the messed up, now we're going to call it disease,
Yeah.
because that's how it's framed. So
That's right.
to change it is perfect, and I think we live in an addictive society because we so with social media, but it's not even social media; it's everything. We become addicted to the pain and to the chaos. So you've got to break that as well, because as you said, sometimes you don't know any better, and you don't realize that, hey, you know what? There's something better. You can experience life and enjoy it for what it is instead of being stuck in this mess all the time.
That's right. And this is about story. I want to just say very clearly that the way that we as human beings have been communicating in some way, shape, or form since the very beginning. And so we're all a product of the first story, right? So if
Yes,
you and I were the
yes,
first people, then what I said to you and you said back to me is the first story, right?
yes,
So when you say things like, you know, this disease, this identity, this narrative, this story that I believe about myself, I am a fill in the blank, that story becomes a way to stay small and isolated. You've mentioned
yes,
isolation a few times. So
yes.
this idea of isolation is where the growth, the negative growth of the dis-ease, we'll just separate the word or give it a hyphen. Dis-ease is where it flourishes, right? In this isolation,
Yes, yes.
in this identification with whatever the challenge is. And this is the perpetual freeze, if you will, to use a trauma word, is the freeze of where people get, you know, where they get stuck, right? And I get stuck in the identity. I am a, or you are a, and we're stuck in these stories where growth struggles to happen and change struggles to happen, right? So here's the antidote. The antidote is, sorry, hang on one second. The antidote is to change our story, right? As the
Yes.
modelers, right? So my job is to figure out how to, in our relationship, change the story so I'm no longer stuck. And maybe what I model might impress and influence you to change your own narrative. Because I don't want to get into this whole idea of like telling anybody who or what they are. I can say what I see, what I witness with my own eyes. I see you struggling. I see your struggle. I see you in this relationship with alcohol or some behavior, and how it's causing you to feel bad about yourself and you're acting out. And what that brings up for me is I get scared that it's, you're going to get stuck in that, or it's going to hurt you more. And what I hope is that you ask for help. Excuse me. So this is a non-shaming, non-blaming way of having a conversation with somebody. It's like a mini intervention where you're not shaming, blaming, or judging. You're telling them your experience. I see you drinking every single day. I see this with my own eyes, and that scares me that this is going to impact your health in a very negative way. And I hope you reach out for help. And then I always follow that with like, pass the potatoes, because I don't want it to turn into a lecture, because that's where we fall into the shaming, blaming, and judging, right? When I tell you that I diagnose you, I'm like, you're an addict, or you're whatever the positive or the macro culture is telling me what you are, I'm going to parrot that, right?
Yes.
Right. And now that person is going to be like, nope, I'm done. I can't, you've lost the connection because I don't feel that's who I am. So now we can't converse, because I know your position is that I am this thing that I don't want. I don't want the label, right? Labels are for bottles and cans, not people, right?
Yes, of course. Yes.
And so if I'm in a conversation with somebody I love and I start labeling them, I'm breaking the connection. So if I'm telling you what I see with my own eyes in real time, or as a memory of an experience, that's non-shaming, non-blaming, and or judgmental.
Yes. And in some way, you're taking the responsibility on yourself instead of pointing fingers.
Sorry,
because
somebody just walked in. Go ahead. Sorry.
That's the fun,
My apologies.
That's the fun part about this.
Yeah.
Like I was saying, okay, I lost my train of thought. Okay, it doesn't matter. What I was thinking, what I was saying is about taking responsibility for what you see, as opposed to pointing fingers and saying, this is who you are.
That's right. That's it.
I can't decide who you are. I mean, who gives me that power? Who gives me that right? So I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
And so, something else I just wanted to mention that you mentioned before about modeling, and you find, well, I found in my life that when I start modeling different things and start being a different person, like we were talking about dying and changing and dying and changing.
Yes.
I find that people are different, behave differently towards me, or they just disappear out of my life. And
that's
so
right.
that's interesting as well. And it's also about when you walk down, it says the same, when you walk down the street and you smile at everyone, suddenly everyone's smiling at you. Walk down the street and look on the floor with a growling, and even the dogs will want to attack you. So
that's right. That's right. So true. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You made me think of when you were speaking about, the modeling piece. One of the people who influenced me early in my life was Wayne Dyer.
Yes.
Right? Wayne Dyer used to have these public television shows where he would talk for a very long time about his whole thing and sell his books on these special public television programs. And I remember one of the things that stood out to me was change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
So true.
I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, wait a minute. And I had to say it over and over again. And all of a sudden it felt so powerful, because we live in a culture of what another teacher of mine, Alan Berger, who's famous in the recovery space, he talks about emotional sobriety. But what he said that impacted me was, we live in an other-centric culture.
Yes.
And an other-centric culture is you, Carina, you. It's that you gun where I'm pointing at you, and I'm not saying I ever. I'm just you. And and what he says, or what I heard him say, was that I give all my power to you, right? Because you're doing this, and you said this, and all that stuff. And all of a sudden I'm an empty vessel because I'm making you the reason why. So I have no
Yes.
power. So I am at the mercy of you now. And I'll do all kinds of weird things if I have no power, if I've given my mercy, or I'm at the mercy of people, places, and things outside of myself, the other centric position, then I am going to cause all kinds of trouble. I'm going to be unstable. I'm going to have low energy. I'm going to growl. I'm going to have dogs bark at me like, what is this energy coming my way? And I'm not going to be able to appreciate, because I don't have any power, the sacredness of all of this.
Yes. Yes.
And that's 80% of people, I think, are walking around sort of in an other-centric posture where it's your fault, its fault, and that place's fault. Like to your point, what you said, that's what made me think of this. Changing the way I look at things changes the world, and the world has done nothing. It is still the world, but my perception is different because I'm not giving it the power that I have been giving it. I am now responsible for the way I look at you so that you don't control me anymore, where I take my power back.
Yes.
And now I'm going to have a very fruitful relationship because I am appreciating and I am protecting the sacredness of my own existence and value without relying on you to decide through my own performance what kind of value I should have. Imagine, right? That's dependency. That's that other-centric, other person, place, or thing dependency that keeps me at the mercy of other people's actions, which I cannot control.
Yes. Yes.
I'm powerless.
I know, and it's all it is just the change of perception, and to realize, wow, I am powerful. All I have to do is make a choice, make a decision. That's all.
Yes.
But again,
what I do is I tell people, I say, choose an action, have an experience, and then share it with me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's because it's so easy to get caught up in, I'm not perfect, or what will people say, or what will happen if I fail. No one cares. Just do it, because
exactly,
everyone's so self-absorbed and so stuck on trying to live or whatever.
I am self-obsessed because I am reliant on you. I have to be self-obsessed, but in a relationship that isn't healthy or doesn't really even exist. I can imagine so many things, right? I can imagine so many scenarios, right? There's that whole thing of like, people saying like, I'm in love with Mary, and then somebody says, have you told her? And they're like, oh God, no, I'm not going to tell her. I'm going to live this fantasy of, this non-existent, imaginative, magical thinking space where I am powerless. I am only powerful if I tell Mary I love her.
Yes. Yes.
I'm not powerful in my thoughts of love. I am powerful in my understanding that I am love and that I can love others, and I will survive that love if it is not returned.
Yes, I think that's the big thing, is this fear of what will happen if I say to you, you know what, I love you. What will happen if they reject me? But you get
if I'm an empty vessel, it's terrifying.
Yes.
If I am empty,
yourself, right?
Exactly.
Even before
that's
you're actually professing your love to this person, and then at the end of the day, why are you loving this person that doesn't really exist anyway?
That's right. That's exactly right. And also what you just said is, do I exist? Am I right? Do I appreciate my own existence? Like I say, like, this is sacred. Do I know this is sacred? What is my relationship with self? Do I exist? Right? We're getting to the existential. We're getting into the, the great philosophers, and the idea and appreciation of my own existence is profound if I understand that the chances of me actually existing are so vast that it's hard to even comprehend, right?
Yes.
Everyone I talk to, every mother I've ever spoken to is not in their own body and appreciative of the sacredness of their own experience long before they ever had children, got married and had children, right? They are divorced from all of that stuff that you and I agree matters, all of it, right? Me as a parent, all of the good things, the bad things, and everything in between matter to the way that I exist in the world and the relationships that I choose to form and show up in. It all matters. I'll tell you a story. I talked to a mom one time. She told me her story. Every conversation starts with the autobiography of why we're here on this call. And it's usually about one person and everything that they did.
Yes.
Right? So she tells me this story, and at the end of the story, and I didn't mean to be flippant or I didn't mean to dismiss, but it occurred to me in the moment that I wanted to know more about this person that's telling me this story.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I said, hey, do you mind if I ask you just a question that might seem off topic, but did you go to college? And she was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like, did you go to college and what did you study? And I just want to know a little bit more about you. And she's like, emotional whiplash. She's like, I just told you all of the problems and the challenges and the crisis, and you want to know this? And I'm like, and there was this pause, and I thought I was going to get a hang up because I'd never done this before. And she said, okay. And she was not happy with me. And she said, I went to school at, I can't remember what school, somewhere in the Midwest. And she said, I went to school for art history. And I went, oh, I love the Impressionists. I am a huge Impressionist fan. I was lucky enough to go as a young man to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York and went and saw Monet and Manet and Degas and, that whole, I get the chills. I just went again like 2 weeks ago. I went again with my daughter. And my point is that she responded, oh yeah, I love that. And, and I said, what was it like being an art history major? Like that was never on my radar. I had to get to work and get a job, and I was business and, all that stuff. And she says, what was that like? And I said, what was that like? And she said, oh, and she went somewhere else. She was in her own body. She was having an experience of what all of that meant to her, right? And how important that was, and how much of a part of that is her to this day. And eventually the conversation got to, I said, so how long has it been since you've been to an art museum? And she said, and she kind of she had caught on at this point. And she kind of went, oh, okay, I get where you're going with this. And she said 9 years. And I said, so how long has this been going on with your son? And she said 9 years. I know what you're saying. And I said, I'm not doing this, and I didn't do this to catch you in anything. I wanted you to realize that all of that of who you are matters to this moment. You don't think it matters because you need a problem solved. You need behavior and symptoms to stop. But that's not what this is about. This is about a relationship with your son and everything that you are before you had a son, including how much art history meant to you and still means to you, as you're now recalling, how important that is to this relationship, to the healing. And she was like, I can't even understand what you're saying. This is not the way that I imagined this call going, and I'm like, me either. But I said, do you kind of get it that you as a person is really so important, is such an important prescription to the healing of this individual that you no doubt love with every fiber of your being? And she was like, oh, wow. Yeah, I do. And I said, I don't know if we're going to work together. Maybe you don't like me anymore. I don't know, but I will ask you one thing. I will ask one thing of you. that when we get off of this phone, that you will arrange for you to go to a museum so that you can fully remember, be reborn to who you really are, because all of that is part of who you really are, and all of that you bring all of that to the relationship, as connection is really what we need to be focused on here, not behavior patrol, not correction, not solving somebody's problems, but being available to connect to this person, your son, who is in a lot of pain. He needs to know that you're a real human being who is safe, who is full and whole and available, and that you recognize that everything that he was before, he challenged himself with this relationship for reasons that we will figure out, is important too, just like these parts of you are important to you, because your son was 5 years old once and wore a cowboy hat and pretended to be a cowboy and maybe even wanted to be in the rodeo. I don't know, but what's important about this is the context, and that you are in the connection business, not in the correction business as a mother.
Yes. Wow, that's amazing.
And that makes all the difference in every relationship. If you realize you're in the correction business, then you're not in the right business. If you realize you're in the connection business in all your relationships, now watch them change and flourish.
And it's interesting, as you were saying, how we taught as women, especially, that you have to give yourself up for your husband, for your children.
That's right.
You must abdicate yourself. You don't count. You nothing. And
that's right.
Those stories stay with you for so long until you step back and say, "Whoa, what is going on?" And then you wonder why the relationships are so. There are no relationships. The nuclear family is non-existent. The husband is over drinking, the wife is eating whatever she's eating to try and survive, and they stay to it's so again we have to change those stories as well.
I wrote a whole article on mothers about this idea of abdicating their identity in favor of purely focusing on being the nurturer of others, as opposed to the nurturer of self as well as others. So that's the whole idea of modeling, understanding that connection is first, not correction. Because Carina, correction as individuals, as you mentioned earlier in this talk, how we speak to ourselves is about correction, not connection, right? When I speak to myself, I'm saying, you need to do that better, and you didn't do that right, and you got to be better. And it's not connection. I'm not giving myself any grace. I'm just giving myself a lot of grief.
Yes, that's true.
And that's not connection. That's correction. That's
no. But that's what we taught. And again, going back, because I mean, that's going back to the mother within this nuclear family. She has dreams. She wants to, but she denies herself because she's not allowed to. So that illness, in inverted commas, that disease just goes underground and causes even more, smelly things, because that's what happens when things die and you try and bury them.
That's right. That's right.
Again, there's so much there within that. So that was beautiful. And then going back to your conversation, did she? I have to ask. Did she come back? Did you coach her?
Yes, I did. She came back. She went to the museum. She went to a museum, and she felt re-energized. She felt more present in her life than she had for a very long time, because she was reconnecting with herself. She was acting in the way that she would hope that her son would. So now she has this point of view, this experience, choose an action, have an experience, and then share it with the group, right? Instead of have an experience, then don't take the action, because the experience that you put before the action will now doesn't allow you to, because you've already decided. It's like kids do. It's like, here, try this. No, I don't like it. Have you ever tried it? No. You know what I mean? We do that as adults, right? It's like choose an action, have an experience, share it with the group, and repeat. So that now you're out of the theoretical, you're in the experiential, and you're developing wisdom. So she had this experience. She came back. She felt stronger than ever. She understood that she was the model in the relationship, not the manager of another person. She was the model in the relationship of what it's like to die and be reborn to a new you, because you understand that you are not what you are doing. You are experiencing addiction. You are not an addict or an alcoholic. Yes. You are having an experience that is a signal to what some unmet needs that you haven't got in your life, more than likely. We all have a set of unmet needs. Probably some have big bags, some have, containers full of unmet needs, whatever, but we all have them. And this isn't about going back and making everybody responsible for the past, hoping for a different past. It's about recognizing that everyone has some unmet needs in their lives. And you don't go back to other people and make them meet your needs. If you're an adult, what you get to do is reparent yourself in a way that says, I'm going to pay attention to myself. Because again, on the other side of treatment, when you're no longer drinking, doesn't mean anything except you're not drinking or you're not using, right? It doesn't mean that you have this different relationship with self. It doesn't mean any of those things, because you can't get all those things in a 30, 60, 90-day program. This is a lifelong journey, as you know, and I know, that this is a process, not an event. This is an opportunity to change my relationship with myself, my perception, to change the way I see myself, so myself changes. If I see myself differently, I will be different, because I will act differently to myself. Yeah.
Yes, and obviously then again you have different relationships, because because you behave differently, so people behave differently towards you.
That's right. Yeah, my influence, that's what you're describing. You're describing my influence can change and be different in different relationships. What does my influence need to be healthily in this relationship with my child versus I don't want to treat my wife like I would have an influence on my child. That would not be good. Aspects of them are the same. And that is, first of all, affirmation is the most important thing, right? You affirm the person's experience. That's what people want. They want to be affirmed for their experience. And if you start there, then you have a really good chance of building connection with that person, because nobody should have to defend their life because of my judging, shaming, and blaming, because that's not a connection. That's just feels like I'm on trial.
Yes. And that you don't deserve to be alive, or you don't deserve the space
to have this experience. Yeah. Who am I? I mean, think of the arrogance behind that.
Yes, I always say that's true. Like, who are you to judge me, or who am I to judge you?
Right. Yeah, it's very much golden rule time. It's like do unto others. It's that idea of how do you break it down into the idea of, if I can come from a place of understanding that how I act influences not only myself and my own energy, but others. It's just, so how do I get the most out of, these exchanges, is to come from a place of connection, not correction or coercion or any of that. And the reason why we default to those, if it's even a default situation that we know there are other ways to act, is because that's the way we've been taught.
Yes.
Yeah. So just realize that.
Yeah. You fix everybody, because if you fix someone else, then maybe by fixing them, you can fix yourself, or whatever the story is.
Exactly. It's that other-centric process where I come over and get in. Carina, I'm going to come over and get in your hula hoop. Are you okay with that?
No.
And you're like, I don't think so. Nope. Not going to happen, you know? And so immediately as I am coming out, you know, like that's my posture, it's automatically rejected because that's not what human beings want. They don't want to be controlled or coerced or blamed or shamed or judged. Go figure. So, you know, again, it's like this idea of, you know, understanding influence that I have as a person, that I do affect other people and the world. That's important to know, because I can take a posture of, hey, I'm not hurting anybody else, you know, which people do. But this is the idea of again, understanding my own power and influence in any situation and acting appropriately, relationally appropriately to the different people in my life, and understand that not everything that happens is the end of the world or the beginning of the world. It is just a point in time where we can collaborate or connect to problem solve. But if we're not into duologue or exchange of ideas, then we'll just be two people saying you to each other, and we're probably not going to solve our problem.
No.
We're going to make things worse.
Yes, yes. And hate each other and hate ourselves even more. And it's always interesting that there's three fingers pointing back at you anyway, people.
Yeah, it's called the U gun. Yeah, yeah.
Well, thank you. This was such an awesome conversation, Tim. I know you're busy, you have to go, and we could probably speak for another 3 hours. So
Easy.
Tell our audience where they can find you. We'll have all the everything in the description box anyway. But how can people find you?
I mean, you can find me on Instagram at Family Wealth Advisor. And then you can also go to my website, which will give you tons of information, resources, free stuff that you can use to kind of figure out where you are as a family system, or as just a person individually, as a leader in your family or in your relationships with people in your jobs as well. This all applies across different systems. And my web address is imagine, familyaddictionrecovery.net. And I like family addiction and recovery together, because together they can make a different, if you use them together and reimagine them, they can be whatever you want. Yes. And this is about being available to learn. It's about being curious. If I could share anything with anybody who's watching this, I would say ramp up your curiosity, ask more questions. Don't assume you have to have the answers. That will hold you in good stead in anything that you do in your life.
Thank you. And it's not about perfection anyway.
No, it's about presence.
Yes.
That's what I tell my clients. It's not about perfection. It's about presence. Remember that.
Yes, because that's another terrible lie, perfection. But that's for another.
It's for another time, but we'll do it.
It's for another time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. This was awesome.
Thank you, Carina.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.